This sweet looking grandma killed 9 people and buried them in a backyard. This is Dorothea Puente. Growing up, both her parents were alcoholics, and her dad's favourite hobby would be threatening to kill himself in front of his kids. He would literally pull out a gun and threaten to shoot himself. And her mum, she worked as a lady of the night, if you know what I mean. She would even disappear for days and lock Dorothea and her siblings in a closet to keep them safe. And boom, Dorothea's dad dies of tuberculosis when she's 8. Mum loses custody and then goes out and dies in a motorcycle accident. And so Dorothea and her siblings go to an orphanage where Dorothea gets SA'd. 9 years later, she's 16 and Dorothea gets married to this guy, Fred McFall. But here's the catch, Fred thought Dorothea was 30 years old and that her name was Cheryl Razil. She must have looked rough for a 16-year-old, or I don't know, maybe he was stupid. So they have 2 kids and Dorothea quickly realises motherhood isn't her thing. So she did what any normal person would do, gave her kids up for adoption and dedicated her life to getting arrested for forgery. She got herself some jail time and a 3-year probation, and shortly after, Fred leaves her. I mean, can you blame the guy? And then she marries this guy, Axel Johansson. But Dorothea changed her entire identity again. This time, her name was Teya Singoala Nayada. And she claimed to be a Muslim woman of Egyptian and Israeli descent. I mean, who are we to question her identity? And when her new husband Axel wasn't home, she would bring random guys to their house and gamble away all his money. And she even ran a bookkeeping service. But it wasn't actually a bookkeeping service. It was actually a brothel. She gets arrested for this and serves 90 days in jail. And when she gets out of jail, she starts drinking a lot and trying to kill herself. So Axel takes her to a hospital where they diagnose her as a pathological liar with an unstable personality. I mean, it doesn't take a professional to figure that one out. And after 14 years of chaos, Axel was like, fuck this shit, I'm out. And she gets married another 2 times, but we know how that ends. Fast forward, Dorothea is now 44 years old and she dedicates her life to running a boarding house. And she changed her identity again. And her new name was Sharon Johansson, a devoted Christian woman. She was out here looking like some sweet grandma. She would host AA meetings, offered women sanctuary from abuse or poverty. She let her grey hair grow out, started to wear vintage clothing and some big round glasses. She really got into character for this one. And the entire time, people were just disappearing. Dorothea would target the elderly and disabled and would drug them with stuff like domain, basically a tranquilizer that would put down a horse. And then she'll bury them in her backyard. Meanwhile, she'll cash out their social security checks. I mean, that's one way to retire. To hide the bodies, she'll plant flowers on top of their graves. There is nothing to see here, folks. Just a nice little rose garden with a side of homicide. But 15 years later, she gets caught when one of the social workers for her tenants came looking for him. The cops show up, they start digging around her backyard, and that's when they find all the bodies. And it was pretty clear she wasn't a sweet old grandma. And when they were about to arrest her, she manages to run away. Like, how does a 59-year-old woman outrun the police? She probably hopped on a mobility scooter. Anyways, 5 days later, they find her. And at her trial, the defense tried to make her seem like some sweet old lady who accidentally let some people die. But the jury wasn't buying it. She got life in prison without the possibility of parole. And even while she was in jail, she wrote her own cookbook called Cooking with a Serial Killer. Not gonna lie, the old lady's a hustler. Dorothea died in 2011, still claiming she didn't do it. But I'm just saying, if your garden has more bodies than vegetables, I think it's time to come clean.